Hello and welcome to another video, and let me know what you think about the new intro. Not too sure about it, give me your comments below and I can change it if people don't really like it. So under your control really. Today we are looking at Valence House in Dagenham. Now Dagenham is just outside on the east of London and within Essex. I guess is it still within Essex? Comes under East London, Barking, Dagenham. Yeah, so we're looking at that today. Now it is a place I'm aware of. I become aware of this when I was doing Eastbury Manor way back in about 2007 2008. We was researching Eastbury Manor and it came up because this is also linked with Guy Fawkes. So there was evidence there that the owners of those houses in the 1600s got together, worked with Guy Fawkes to plan the attack on Parliament that was obviously thwarted. So I was aware of Valence House, and like Eastbury Manor, you drive to Valence House through a big council estate and you sort of not come across it, but you turn off a normal road and you see these park gates and you enter it into a play area, then a lake, and then you walk through a pathway and you see the house in front of it. Now the first recorded evidence we have of this house was when Joseph Hacken, I think that's how you pronounce his name, 1250, and it's actually under the name of Gossist House or Gossist Manor. Now the first time we've got recorded as a Valence House was in 1375. Originally for Agnes. Dee Valence was the original owner. She moved in there after her death of her third husband. She's meant to be one of the ghosts that haunts the land at the moment. We've got a few ghosts there. Again, I'd like to thank people that subscribe to my channel, that have contacted me with their own ghost stories from this place. I'm aware of some that date back to the early 1800s and the 19th century. I do believe one of the first ghost stories we've got reported from there was in 1834, and there was a researcher, Mr. O'Leary, and this came to light when he was doing some research once it was taken over by the local council, and the chamber, well not the chamber but the hall itself in the house became the town hall, and they used to have council meetings in there. So we're looking at some of the evidence across the whole of the history of the house to find out about the ghost stories, and there are quite a few, and it's quite tricky to know where to start with, how much of the history of the place I want to put into here, but we'll see how we get on. So one of the first ghost stories I'm aware of happens actually outside, and this is where you've got an outside moat. Now the moat used to run around the building, and it was access to the building by a drawbridge. Now that has been filled in on, I think it's 3 sides it's filled in, but you can still see where the old moat was. Now in the playground area or field area you'll see a line of trees, and I've got a video here of that line of trees and a lovely squirrel as well. But in that line of trees, this is where children are seen playing around there. So we have a report from 1982 where a lady is walking her dog. This is 6 o'clock in the evening in the summer, so it is nice and bright. She looks across the field and sees a group of children playing in between those trees. Now it is a line of trees. I've looked on old maps to find out if it was a pathway or something like that. There are some big drawings of the area and you can see these trees plotted on there, but what she sees is these children playing there. As she walks along with her dog and gets closer and closer to these trees, she realises these children are out of character. And what she means by that is they're not dressed how you'd expect modern children to be dressed. She said they was dressed in very, very old Victorian clothing, or maybe even older than that, and then she walked across to get him closer to them, and as she did so, you guessed it, they disappeared. She was obviously quite shocked by this, and she went back and she actually contacted the local paper. Now the local paper did run a little story on it. I've been trying to find it, I can't find that one, but I'm aware that over the years these little ghost stories of Valence House have appeared in the local press. And I'd like to add today that I'm being supported by Halls. I've got a stinking cold, and the only way I'm getting through this video is by eating these halfway through and keep stopping recording. My throat is killing me and my nose is bunged up, so do apologise, but I'm getting through it. I went there, so this was only a couple of days ago that I actually went there, and I went through the whole house. I've never been there before. What I did purposely do was not to read all the stuff that had been sent to me. And it was only after that I've come back and looked at all the stories that have been sent to me, and to look at the history of other ghost investigations there. I wanted to make up my own mind about this place when I walked around. I am not one of these people that get a lot of feelings walking around a place and all that sort of stuff. To my surprise, it is a brilliant museum. First of all, it's fantastic. A great place for education and to take kids on a day out and that sort of stuff. The stuff they've got in there is fantastic, and it's funded by the council, which is amazing. I think any support that this museum can get is just going to be brilliant. You've got to keep it open, hopefully 5 days a week. I know they're trying to reduce their hours from the council, or 6 days a week. It needs to be staying open all the time and supported as much as it can. Walking around there, first of all, part of the buildings you're going to feels a little bit modern, the way it's been converted. Over the years, Valence House has been changed quite a lot, and the very, very old parts of it and a more modern extension. Not that modern, we're still talking 19th century. Again, probably when the house was transferred over from private residence to the council. What actually happened was that after the war in 1919, the council compulsory purchased that house and turned it into a town hall. This was based on the fact that I was about to build the biggest council estate in the world of 20,000 houses around Dagenham. Before that, the house was surrounded by farms and fields and gardens. So you can imagine that changed. The family at the time, I think it was Thomas, that they must have hated it, and I know that he felt it was part of his rite of passage to be in the house. So being pulled away from that probably left rather a negative feeling on that building itself. But as you walk through the house and you go in, one of the first things you'll see is a model of how the estate used to look like, and you can see from this how big the whole area actually was. You go into the other room, and that is where you see the grand piano. I'm very much aware that one of the regular things that tend to happen in this house is the sound of the piano playing. I asked the staff there, and they said they've not heard that. Now this is where we're going to the realms of paranormal investigation teams. I'm very much aware that paranormal investigation teams, when they do their night stays, have now reported they hear that piano playing on nearly every investigation they do. Yet the staff say they've never heard it. Take that as you like, but again, it is an old piano, grand piano sitting there. I guess maybe someone may have faked it, played on the keys to trick a few people, or maybe they think they hear it, or maybe it does play. But again, it is one of those most commonly reported things that this piano plays in that house of a night time. One of the things that I did come across there, and obviously being a museum of the area, I don't know I really want to be in a house that's got this, was an idol that was found in Raynham Marshes. Now this idol is thousands of years old, and it looks creepy. Yeah, there's not two ways you can say it. Bleeding bizarre. It's not the best thing that I'd have in my house. This was given as a gift to the gods. I don't know if I'd be comfortable with bringing something that was sort of sacrificed in the marshes and bring it back and stick it in a house where people may live or anything like that. I know people don't live in that house no more, but yeah, definitely gives you a creepy feeling when you're standing there looking at it. I can't say it didn't make me feel happy. I'm obsessed by it, just sitting there looking at it and thinking how old it was. But yeah, you can see I've got a lot of video of the house and the museum, and it's got some great interesting artifacts. It does surprise me that the building has changed so much. Now this was the newer section, I believe, great big staircases that go around. In the olden days, the bedrooms were all upstairs. This is where we've got the ghost of Eliza Luxmore. Now, Eliza lived here. Now, she was the stepmother who come to live at this place, and apparently she was a short lady and quite a strict lady, and she used to have not a servant, but she used to have a tall accomplice that used to walk around with her. And from what I looked at in the history, apparently she used to tell this lady that if she didn't behave, she was going to send her off to the workhouses. And it was a joke, but that lady didn't know it was a joke. So you can imagine that she was quite strict on that, and I believe that she was quite strict with children as well in that area. What we do know about this house, over these hundreds of years, it was a great family home. Now, this lady who was very, very strict, Eliza, and she passed away in 1913, and a few years later, her great-granddaughter was sneaking around the house. She wasn't allowed upstairs where the bedrooms were, but she did sneak up there one day, and she had a look, and she see a lady standing there, and she thought she'd been caught out looking around the place where she shouldn't be. She gave a cheeky little smile to this lady. The lady gave her a little smile back, and she went down. After a couple of hours, she couldn't hold in this secret that she had seen somebody, and she asked them, "Who is this lady I see upstairs?" And they said, "There was no old ladies in the house at all." And they said, "Well, the only person that's ever been here was your great-grandmother." And they went through a family album and showed her a photo of the lady, the great-grandmother, and the granddaughter pointed out to her and said, "That's her." So that was a solid sighting. Over the years, and even now recently, Eliza is said to be seen haunting those upper floors. Another report we have of Eliza is actually from two ladies that were visiting the museum on a normal weekday. So this wasn't of an evening, wasn't of a night time. They were just walking around the museum, and they got to the end of the corridor. Now, I got to say, I told you already that I didn't go and look at this stuff as knowing the history of these ghosts. I walked down this corridor, and I walked up to where it says private, staff only, and I felt as if someone was watching me. And I looked over my shoulder a couple of times. You can see I'm filming in this bit of area here as well. I do cover it. I'll try and put that clip in here. But while I'm filming, I'm looking over my shoulder, and I feel as if somebody's looking at me. And later on, I stopped and spoke to a staff member, and she told me that recently, that when working in that area, she has heard a male voice turn around and ask her why she's there. And at the same point, they've been working in the office downstairs, and she's heard a deeper male voice asking, what are you doing here? This is recent activity that we have of these voices being heard. When I found out that upstairs is where she had seen or heard this voice, it sort of gave me the shivers down my spine, thinking that's exactly where I was, where she said that she'd been hearing it. When I got back and researched it, I found another report that someone had seen someone, a lady or a figure, down the end of that corridor looking at them. These two ladies were walking down that corridor. As I was walking into the room at the end, on the side they turned around and looked where that private area is, and they said they see a lady standing there, a short lady in an old-fashioned dress, just staring at them, and then she vanished. This sort of backs up a lot of the other reports that I've read on this now, and from my own feelings walking down there, someone who is skeptical, it did give me the chills. And I've been in many apparently haunted locations and don't feel anything. It's not completely true. I do feel things, but I probably poo-poo them too much. But this was, did give me the chills. And coming home and reading this and finding out that other people have had that feeling down there and they've seen this lady standing there. And then saying that, may not be a lady. The staff there said they had heard a young male voice, so we don't know. Now, there is somebody that could haunt that, and that is Thomas, and that was Eliza's husband. He was a sailor high up in the Navy, and he again was meant to be quite a strict person, and he's said to haunt this area as well, the upper floors. Now, it's not just the upper floors that are haunted by Eliza. She has been seen downstairs as well, but I'm aware that Eliza did pass away upstairs in the bedroom, so maybe her spirit is there. I wonder what she thinks of all the changes that have gone on. Is she interested in seeing all these people? Was this myth about Eliza being quite strict not true? Does she love children? Does she enjoy seeing all these school kids come through? Because we do have a report of a schoolboy going home and telling his mum that he had a conversation with a lady, then she disappeared, and he tried to tell the teacher that he had spoke to this lady, and the teacher was saying, no you didn't, no you didn't. And he carried on so much that the school contacted the house, this going back a few years, and they turned around and said, well, it may have been the ghost of Eliza. So we've got little snippets like that. Again, I wish we had more. When reports get sent to local newspapers, I believe they're not always published. I don't believe they're always published in the way they should be. Normally they bunch them together around Halloween. So to do the research, you have to go back over a lot of time. And then again, I guess it does help, because when I'm looking for ghost stories of different areas, I go to the Halloween section of the newspaper. No, you just go to October, the October edition, and they'll have like local ghost stories, and you'll read them in there. So I guess it does help a little bit that you know where to look. But over the years, you just want ghost stories shouldn't just be put out there. We all like, in local communities, we like these little ghost tales and myths and legends of our area that we all live in. Now, one of the reports I've got comes from an ex-staff member. I don't know if they'd retired, but this is a report that was fed to me. I have not spoken to this person, but they were there on a clean down. So this would be during the period of time when it was shut as a museum and only staff could go in there. And she was the only person in the house when she could hear children running around downstairs. Now, again, I didn't read this after being there, and one of the staff ladies did tell me that there had been reports of voices of children running around downstairs. So again, it backs up this report that I'm about to tell you. So this staff member is downstairs, and she's just cleaning the house, and she could hear these voices of these children just chanting and just playing happily around. First of all, she thought they were outside. And then she realised they're actually on the lower level of the house and coming from one side, the older side of the house. This would be where, at the moment, there is a wall that is being left to show the natural timbers of that building. So she walks up to where this area is, and the voices of these children are getting louder. And then quickly she sees these shadows, these small shadows of children running through the doors. This shocks her because she thinks no one should be in there. Not thinking at that time there could be a ghost, she goes in there to tell whoever it is and find out how they've got into the building. They've gone into a room where there's only one door in and one door out. She goes in there, and of course there's no one in there. I am aware that yes, these old buildings have got secret rooms. This house is no different. There is a secret passageway or a cubby hole. Probably more priest hole looking at it. It's a short cupboard. I didn't actually get a film of that. I may have to dig out a photo of that. To me, it looks like a priest hole. So it's a panel in a door that opens up. There's a tiny little room in there. Very similar to what there was in Eastbury Manor. So I think that is where the priest used to hide when old Henry VIII was doing his job of getting rid of them all. So it wouldn't surprise me that has been created for that. But these children could not escape through that way. So she goes in there, sees the room is totally empty, and just puts it down to ghosts. She just, I've seen ghosts of children now. No, she knows the history of the building. They all sort of believe, they don't all believe. I tell you now that the staff that met on that day, some totally don't believe it. Others completely believe in the ghosts. And it's refreshing because you get both sides of the stories. So they go, yeah, it could have been this, it could have been that. And then you get, no, I see this and this is what I actually see. And no one will change their mind. They see that or heard that. We also have a report that was put in from one of the members or subscribers to this channel. And that was that their son had been on a school trip there and turned around and said they had had a conversation with two young boys in that building that were not from this time. And they told him that they used to live in that house, and he was almost quite aware that he was talking to ghosts. And he went home, he told his mum, and the mum turned around and not poo-pooed him or belittled him, but took it at face value, asked him the questions, and the more she dug, and he'd give a description of their clothing. Now keep in mind, when I'm going around that building, I can't see any descriptions or models or dolls or anything like that from that time period that this boy describes. And he describes sort of early 18th century clothing. If you see one of my last videos about the Screaming Boy Wood, something come up that again is more fundamental to these ghost reports. This young boy said that he couldn't quite understand his English. It was different. And that is the same in that last video about Screaming Boy Wood, because languages do change over those years. So again, the boy said it was English, but not quite the English that he knew. Again, little detail there that adds a little bit of credibility to his report to his mum. And that report inspired me talking about Screaming Boy Wood, inspired one of you subscribers to message me with this report on this place. And it was one of the reasons that I decided, yeah, okay, I will go there. I did come across this when I was doing Eastbury Manor, but I'm glad I went there. We've still got a lot more stories to tell you now. So now we're going right away back to the beginning of the history of this place. This is again for Agnes. Agnes again is the one who come there, Agnes Valence. Unfortunately for Agnes, she was shot while out riding one day and come back and passed away in the house, and is actually listed as murder. So someone actually was convicted for her murder. Now Agnes is still said to haunt the grounds and inside that building. So there are reports of seeing a lady riding a horse, clutching her chest late at night, heading across the field out to where the drawbridge would have been when it was originally there. So this has been seen by quite a few local people, of this phantom horse rider heading down towards the house. I've been looking at reports over these last couple of days. I can't find anything really listed in the books or in the literature over it. I know that this has been reported on local history websites before. I know it comes up a lot in the paranormal teams when they go there and look for it, and their reports have a little bit in there regarding it. But I'm trying to find the details about this. I do know that it is true that Agnes did lose her life there, and that she is said to haunt that building. As other reports go, we have children that are seen playing out in the garden area. Now the gardens is an old Victorian garden. Well, it's not an old Victorian garden. It goes back along that 600 years. So the garden's been there a lot longer than that. But the garden is said to be haunted by different children and a gardener. We'd have reports of an army soldier that has seen the ghosts in the garden. During World War II, the house was actually given over as a fire watch. So this is where they'd be viewing across the area to see what houses have been bombed, so they could send the troops out and to deal with the damage that has been done. These airmen, I call them airmen and not, these soldiers were looking out and just observing during the Blitz, and one of them turned around and sees two children playing in the garden late at night, obviously knowing that this is not possible. And he goes down there, and of course these children are not there. They're just disappeared. It's not the only time, because when he goes back and tells other people about it, that's when one of them turned around and said he sees the ghost of an old lady up in the corridors by the bedrooms. Again, this is Eliza. So we've got here, during World War II, You got army soldiers turning around and telling ghost stories and seeing ghosts while they're there working. So the credibility there again builds up a little bit that they're not there making up these stories, or were they making up these stories to freak each other out? We don't know. Again, it's more stories that we can add to the list, an ever-growing list of the ghosts and paranormal events that take place in this building. I think what is really noticeable about all these reports of this house is none of the ghosts seem to be scary ghosts. They're not those dark shaped figures that are scaring people, running out chasing people, or giving these dreaded feelings to people. They all seem to be quite happy and pleasant. And again, what my view of credibility of mediums are, but apparently most mediums that go to that house say they feel very, very happy, and the house has got a happy feeling about it. And I agree, walking around that place, apart from that little chill I got, I was fascinated by it. The wood panelling around the walls. Yes, it's now a museum. Yes, there's paintings that feel like they're following you around the room and of the past residents, or that were connected to the building. It can give you the creeps. Of course it does. Paintings always give me the creeps when I'm looking at them. Now, there are ways that, especially one there that does look like it's following you around the room when you're walking around it, but that's an uneasy feeling. There is another story, and this is concerning a chest, or the room where the chest is in the museum. So as I said before, this was once taken over by the council to be used as a town hall. During that period of time, a councillman was in the building, and where that room is where there's a chest now, he was standing there looking out the window. In the reflection of the window, he sees a young lady standing behind him. He turns round, and of course there's no one behind him. He looks back into the window, and a reflection of this young girl is still standing there looking at him. Again, he turns round, there's no one there. And as he turns back, he sees the figure of this girl turn her back and walk back out the door. This is all in a reflection in the window. This gives him the chills. He goes back into what was the chamber. Now, I'm not too sure if the chamber was upstairs then or been moved downstairs. Now, there is a little photo here of when they're all sitting in the chamber. It looks a lot smaller than the chambers that I sat in at Thurrock Council before we built a new one. And less said about that, the better. It is a small, cramped little study. I believe one of those council people in that photo is the person that's put this report in. I'm not going to name them or anything like that, but I was prodded on this yesterday about who it could have been and the report. But he wasn't the only member of that council that reported seeing ghosts in that building. And again, apparently it was Eliza that they had seen in a different part of that area. This is going back to where the wall can be seen in the building, and those little corridors that go around there. Councillors were walking down there. A group of them, 5 or 6, were walking down there, where they see a lady standing at the end of that corridor. Now, I do laugh because I can just imagine these blokes just walking along, confidently walking along, and all of a sudden they see a ghost standing at the end of the corridor. What the conversation would have been between them. And who would admit that they'd seen it first of all. But again, they did see this lady standing in the edge of the corridor. They described her as old, short and grumpy. Again, matches Eliza's description. If that is what she was, we don't know if she was grumpy. We're just taking other people's words for it. We know she was strict, and we know that she played tricks on her worker. But to say she's just generally grumpy is probably a bit of a stretch. But I'd love to know what those council people felt when they see this lady stand at the end of there. And, did they turn around and say they admit they'd seen a ghost? Or, well, one of them did. We know one of them did. And further on, a few years later, another reported all what had happened with the group of them walking down the corridor. It is quite strange to get so many reports of one person. But Eliza is still meant to be seen today. Is this because we've got paranormal teams going there that are keeping her going? Agnes one is a little bit different because not much has come up about that. I know these paranormal teams try to look for it, but don't really come up with much information about it. We know that it was a death. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of people have died in that building. No, since 1200, a lot of people have died in that building. And I wonder what the effect is that all these artefacts that have been dragged into that building for the museum has on the atmosphere there. Now, there's a Roman sarcophagus in there. I don't know if the skeleton in it is real or fake. You've got items there from the Vikings. Now, you've got all these items there that could have an energy. The idol, I mean, that wooden idol, say, it freaks me out. Does that bring an energy to that building that is keeping these spirits alive in that building? That's not letting them rest. But it's a very, very interesting place to go and visit. And again, we've still got more stories to come. Now, as you know, one thing I like doing when I go to visit a location is to speak to the local people around there. I did approach a few people that are around in the park area and asked them, but not much was coming from it. I went down to local shops, not really much. Then on the way back, I spoke to a gentleman and asked him if he'd seen anything. He came out with a cracker, and it is right down the street of things that I love. He said that he was walking, quite ironically, walking his dog down there in December the other year, where the fence is and these ducks are. He said he could hear a splashing noise. He looked over there and he thought he see a boy splashing around in that lake. He went over to the fence and you can't get in there, it's gated off, and he was panicking because he thought someone was drowning in that lake. As he tried to climb over the fence, looking at this boy to make sure he weren't going under the water, the boy disappeared and all the water went completely flat. Now, he didn't say the boy went under, he said it gone. He just disappeared. The water was just dead flat. He weren't there. He was never there. He goes, it was a ghost. And I loved it. And I was like, that's just what I'm looking for. Stories like that, really short, to the point. It was just fascinating. I've gone away and tried to research this moat. And yes, the moat was quite a substantial moat. It was dry at one end, but looking at the bigger pictures of it, it was quite a substantial moat. I'm not surprised people might have drowned over there in those years. It's been a big family home. Accidents happen. Maybe people were offed that way. No, oh, he accidentally fell into the moat, and oh yeah, that's sad, isn't it? Easy out, isn't it? It's that sort of thing. I can't find the list of people's deaths there that have that died in a moat. There are lists of accidents. There's obviously, you get the census list and people moving on. What has made it a little bit more complicated is that it was rented a lot. Although you had some long-term families there, a lot of it was sublet quite often. So you've got the list of the residents there on the censuses, sublet quite a lot. It's like Eliza. I struggle with Eliza's story. I'm not doubting it. I can't find her last name. I can find Eliza. I can't find her last name, Luxmore, in the census records around 1913. There is Eliza there, but then I have her listed living elsewhere, Bermondsey, I think it is, in London, or somewhere like that, Bloomsbury, London. It needs to be clarified about Eliza, what one it is. Again, these sort of things, when I look down census records, they bug me, because if it's not Eliza who's haunting that area, it's not Eliza who's haunting it, who is it? Because the description, yes, matches her, but could it be, we've got a long history to choose from. Could it be somebody else that we're not knowing, we're not picking up on, that could be the ghost there? Again, this isn't a story of these petrifying ghosts. These are maybe residual energy ghosts. Now, this is where something's happened, or they've lived their life there and their passion's there, they've passed on, and they don't want to leave that place, so the energy stays within that building. That's more sort of the ghost stories that I believe in a lot more than, I guess, the poltergeist ones. I'm not doubting the poltergeist ones, because people I've spoken to are totally convinced they've seen that and it's traumatized them. So But I do, when it comes to the paranormal, I like the stone tape theory, the energy replaying itself under certain circumstances. Now, the last ghost we have is of a groundsman. Now, I said before that they're not scary, spooky ghost stories. Maybe this one is a little bit spooky and scary. So we're going back quite a few years now to 1855. A groundsman is said to have lost his life there. Again, can't track any records of this, but that is the story that we're looking at. And then a few years later, a group of children that lived in that house are outside playing in the gardens, where you can see now they've been turned into like a Dig for Victory garden and all those sort of things. They're out there playing and they get chased by a dark shape. Now, when one of the boys is slower than the rest, he feels that he's been grabbed from the back and he falls to the floor, and as he turns around laying on the floor and he looks up, he said he sees this almost see-through figure of an old man, and he described him to other people in the house, and they turned around and said, that is the old groundsman. As I say, these details are not hearsay. This was from O'Leary. Now, I know O'Leary done quite a lot of research on this stuff, so he doesn't really go into the paranormal stuff around it. So again, these were side notes, little bits he's done, or things he's told other people that have been fed back to other people that get reported on the paranormal database and stuff like that. But again, they're more consistent with the history of the building. What I do advise is that definitely go there, not just to support the museum. Go there and see what you think. And one bit I would like you to go to is that when you go up the stairs, head straight through the main gallery. Where you get to the far end, now you'll see a bit where it's private. You can go up and do a little loop around now. Just stand down that area down there and just see what you can feel. See if you can feel anything, any energy, or as if someone is watching you. Unfortunately, I've put that idea into your head now, so that could play a trick on you. But try and be really neutral about it, and to see what you can think of. But anyway, thank you for all the support you're giving me in these videos, and we're up to 2,500 subscribers now as of today. And it's, your messages and your support is really great, and yeah, the more views and likes and subscriptions, and don't forget to put that notification bell on. My last video, apparently no one got notified on it when I uploaded it, so make sure you put your bell on and it will notify you when I upload my next video. But that said, keep well, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Bye.